Everyone tells you to avoid pain. Numb it, distract from it, medicate it, schedule it away. But somewhere underneath that advice, you already suspect it's wrong, because the moments that actually built you weren't the comfortable ones. They were the ones that broke something open. What if the pain you're running from right now is actually raw material, and you've just never been shown how to use it? Friedrich Nietzsche was a 19th century German philosopher who spent his life questioning inherited morality, religion, and the comfortable stories people tell themselves to avoid difficulty. He wrote landmark works like Thus Spoke Zarathustra and Beyond Good and Evil, almost entirely while battling debilitating migraines, near blindness, and chronic illness that ended his academic career at just 34. He matters today because we live in a culture obsessed with comfort and self-soothing. And Nietzsche is one of the few thinkers who built an entire philosophy around a different, harder, and ultimately more honest question. Not how do I avoid suffering, but what can suffering make me capable of? Nietzsche watched the people around him, particularly in religion and in polite society, constantly promising that the goal of life was comfort, safety, and the avoidance of suffering. He thought this was not just wrong but dangerous, because a person who organizes their entire life around avoiding pain ends up small, timid, and quietly resentful, unable to grow because growth itself requires friction. His own life made the point for him without him even needing to argue it. At 34, chronic illness forced him to resign his university professorship. He spent the next decade drifting between boarding houses in Italy and Switzerland, nearly blind, in constant physical pain, largely unread and unrecognized. By every conventional measure, his life looked like a failure, a long, unbroken stretch of suffering with no relief in sight. And yet that exact decade produced almost everything he's remembered for. Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Beyond Good and Evil, On the Genealogy of Morals, all written from inside the pain, not after it was resolved. He wasn't waiting for the suffering to end before he became who he was. The suffering was the workshop. Here's the practical action. Take the discomfort you're currently trying hardest to avoid or numb, and instead of asking, how do I make this stop, ask a different question out loud. What is this forcing me to become that I couldn't have become otherwise? Write the answer down, even one sentence. You're not looking for a silver lining. You're looking for the raw material. Once you stop treating pain as an enemy to defeat, Nietzsche offers an even bolder move, not just tolerating what happens to you, but actively loving it. That idea has a name, Amor fati. Amor fati is Latin for love of fate, and it was one of Nietzsche's central ideas. He didn't mean passively accepting whatever happens with a shrug. He meant something much more demanding, wanting nothing in your past to be different. Not the failures, not the losses, not the years that felt wasted. Because every one of them is a load-bearing wall in the structure of who you are right now. Remove one, and the whole thing collapses differently. He paired this with his idea of the will to power, often misunderstood as domination over other people, but which he mostly meant as the drive within a person to master themselves, to take raw experience, including painful experience, and shape it into strength, direction, and creative work. The way a blacksmith takes raw, unshaped metal and turns it into something with an edge. Nietzsche lived this in a very literal way. He described his own philosophy as something he had to test on his own body and his own suffering before he would write it down for anyone else. He wasn't handing out theory from a comfortable chair. He was reporting back from inside the fire. Here's how to practice this today. At the end of the day, write one sentence about the hardest thing currently happening in your life, but phrase it as something that is happening for you rather than to you. Not because it feels true yet, because that reframe is itself an act of will, the same act Nietzsche is describing, and repeating it is how the shift actually starts to take hold. Amor fati and the will to power are the philosophy. But philosophy is only useful if you can actually apply it the next time something hard lands on your desk. So here is a simple 3-step reframe you can use on real current pain. Nietzsche never left his ideas as pure abstraction. He was famous for turning philosophy into short, usable, almost aphoristic instructions, lines you could carry around with you. The most famous being his claim that what does not kill me makes me stronger. That line gets quoted so often it's become a cliché. But Nietzsche meant it as something closer to a method, a specific way of relating to hardship rather than just a comforting slogan to repeat. Here is that method broken into 3 steps you can use on whatever is actually difficult in your life right now. Step 1. Name it precisely. Not everything is falling apart, but the specific event, the specific fear, the specific loss, because vague pain controls you while named pain can be worked with. Step 2. Ask what it demands of you. Not what it's taking away, but what capability, what honesty, what change it is asking you to build in response. Step 3. Take the smallest possible action that treats this pain as fuel rather than as a verdict on your worth. Something small enough to actually do today. A hard conversation you finally have, a habit you finally start, a decision you finally make. Nietzsche himself did exactly this on a small physical scale. Nearly blind, in constant pain, unable to write by hand for long stretches, he bought one of the first typewriters in Germany so he could keep working despite his body's limits. He didn't wait for the obstacle to disappear. He built a smaller, specific workaround for it and kept moving. That's the whole method in miniature. If this reframe is useful to you, subscribe to Life's Philosophy for more of this. Old ideas turned into daily usable wisdom, with new videos coming regularly. Before you go, answer this in the comments. What is one piece of pain in your life right now that you've been treating as a verdict, that you could start treating as fuel instead? I read these and I want to know yours. Everyone will keep telling you to avoid pain. Nietzsche's answer was simpler and harder. Don't avoid it. Forge with it.